What's up, everybody? All right, we are live. Charlie Marlow here. You see the title of the video of the live stream. Breaking 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports denied hearing and could lose their charters next week. That is true, folks. 2311 Racing, of course, owned by Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin. Front Row Motorsports, owned by Bob Jenkins. You have this NASCAR lawsuit been going on for what? End of last year, around November or so. So it's been going on more than half a year now. But big news, big development. And this one, again, not going the way of the teams, going the way of NASCAR. This has been a big back and forth. And surely there were some early victories for the teams. And lately, it's been all NASCAR in terms of the ruling. So let's get right to it, let you know what's going on. And just so everybody knows, I'm not boots on the ground. I am reacting to the reports I'm seeing on social media just like you are. So let's go to Bob Pockrass first. Okay, I saw him reporting this first. This was an hour ago or so. He says, he tweets, 2311 and Front Row have been denied a rehearing to the injunction reversal. So potentially could lose their charters effective for Dover. So this is what happened. It was about a month ago or so when NASCAR won this particular ruling. And so what happened was you'd have to wait about couple weeks to have the teams try and overturn this. And then it could be another 7 days if the teams actually lost their charters. So that's where we're at right now. And with the fact that NASCAR has a victory here, in terms of this legal, I was going to call it a legal battle. It's really a legal war. So NASCAR has won this particular battle. And because you have to wait 7 days then, right? So it's not going to happen for Sonoma this week. And we don't know officially if it's actually going to happen at all, if these teams really will lose their charters. But now 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports, they are in jeopardy of losing their charters next week. So if you look at the NASCAR schedule, you have Sonoma coming up this weekend. Week after that is Dover. So you could have these teams running as non-chartered teams for Dover coming up in about a week and a half. And remember, if you're not running as a chartered team, there's really two big downsides to that. And I would say the money is the biggest downside, that you lose out on the charter money, whereas the chartered teams are in on that pot and the non-chartered teams aren't. The other part is you'd have to qualify in. And so if you ever did have a race with more than 40 cars, and we don't really anticipate that happening, although if you look at the Chicago street course race, you did have Corey Heim was the one driver that did not qualify in. So if any of these races upcoming, if 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, if they actually do lose their charters, they could have to qualify in any of these races if there's more than 40 cars. So this is also from Bob Pockrass's X feed. He does have a statement from 2311 Front Row attorney Jeffrey Kessler. We've been hearing from him ever since last November, whenever this lawsuit started. Was it late October or early November? Whenever it was around that time. So basically, statement from 2311 and Front Row attorney Jeffrey Kessler on appeal court denial of their request for a rehearing on the injunction reversal. I know that's a lot of legalese, okay? The teams possibly will have to race as open, having to qualify to get in. I just told you that. If there's a race with more than 40 cars, and would receive less money, and that starts next week at Dover. But here is the actual statement from Jeffrey Kessler. Again, I'm trying not to repeat myself, but he's the attorney for 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. He says, quote, "We are disappointed by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals decision to deny our request for a full rehearing. This decision has no bearing on the strength of our antitrust case, which we look forward to presenting at trial. We are committed to racing this season as we continue to fight for more competitive and fair terms for all teams to ensure the future of the sport and remain fully confident in our case, end quote. Okay, that was about an hour ago that Bob Pockrass put up that particular quote. I'm going to see if he has any more reporting on this. So about 25 minutes ago, Bob Pockrass tweets, 2311 and Front Row have said they remain committed to field 3-car teams, whether open or chartered, for this year. So this won't change things for this year. So that would indicate they have the financial ability to make up the difference. And then in parentheses, I assume if they win at trial, there would be some sort of damages to cover it. So if they were to lose money this year because they were non-chartered teams, then they would win the lawsuit. If they were to win the lawsuit coming up in December, they could be entitled to some damages. I feel like one of those lawyers that's on TV, you could be entitled to some damages. All right, let's see if Bob's been great reporting this all along. Let's go to Jeff Gluck as well. Jeff Gluck, our partner on Dirty Mo Media, right? Of course, they have the teardown. We have Herman Schrader. Let's see if he has anything different than Bob Pockrass. He has the statement. He has the news, blah, blah, blah. And then, so here's one tweet from Jeff Gluck. He says, everything is pending the December 1st trial or a settlement, in parentheses. Of course, there could be a settlement before a potential trial in December, but the way things are going doesn't look like that. Doesn't look like these the teams and NASCAR are on a very friendly footing right now. Both sides would characterize these motions and rulings so far as relatively minor compared to the trial itself. That's when we are really going to see how this all turns out and what the impacts are. Right. So today what's going on, I don't think anybody expected the teams to have this reversed. The big news was about a month ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, when we heard this, that they could lose their charters. And then you had basically the time frame where the teams could appeal. So that was 14, 21 days, one of those two time frames. And then once they basically did not get a rehearing, that's today right now. That's Wednesday, July 9th. Now there's 7 days after that where they could lose their charters. So like I said, Sonoma is not an issue this weekend, but these teams, 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports, they could be racing as non-chartered teams, as open teams, as early as Dover about 10 days from now. So what do you guys think of this? Let's check out the stream here. We got 173 of you guys and gals watching. Let's go to your comments here. Let's see. Tom Casella says, Denny needs to fight for his rights to party or to race as a chartered team. Tony Dyson says, NASCAR has become a joke. Now, why is that? Just because of this lawsuit? Den's live concert videos. When you had every other team sign the agreement and two teams not, pretty hard to have a leg to stand on. I hear you, but I think all the other teams were happy about this lawsuit, to be honest. I think they were happy that 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports were fighting for them. And you saw a lot of comments from Richard Childress, from Rick Hendrick, basically insinuating we were tired. You know, we had to sign the agreement. We have employees to worry about and all that. But I think if you put them on a lie detector, all the teams were happy that 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports went through with this lawsuit. Let's see. Yeah. And basically our guy Biz said kind of what I just said. Multiple teams said they didn't even agree with the contract, but were afraid to lose money. Yeah, I think that's a fair characterization. Boo-bah says, when is Denny going to blame Joey Logano? Are we dead ass? Broken heart? Are we dead ass? What does that mean? Jerry Lewis says, finally, can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, there's no finality, though, just so everybody knows. There's no finality with this ruling. But again, it's another legal win in this long, if we're going to call it a war. I don't like to compare sports to war, but this is a little battle within the war. And clearly NASCAR has been on the right side of recent developments. They've been winning a lot of these small battles over the last several months. Let's see. Sherry Parker says, I love it. Hope they lose their charters. You want them to lose their charters? So does Charles Tinsman. Hopefully they lose them. How about that? Pure Stock 83 says, sounds like the teams want more return on investment from NASCAR. Yeah, that's fair. They definitely want a bigger piece of the pie when it's broken down between the tracks, NASCAR, which also remember NASCAR owns a lot of the tracks, and the teams as well. Smith B says, I think it's fair to the other teams that did sign the contract for 2311 and Front Row to run as open. Okay, I understand that. I don't agree with that, but I understand your thinking there. SW says, this should all be worked on through the off season. Yeah, I get that. You tell me, though. I don't think it's a huge distraction. The news updates are always happening during the midweek where, look, we're kind of looking for some NASCAR news anyway. I don't know how you guys feel. Now, maybe it's because we make content, right? We make videos, so it helps when we have news. But I feel like it's not a distraction for the races, right? Like last year, I thought the timing of this was bad just because it came out right before the championship. Okay, let me look that up because I keep saying late October, early November. Let me look that up because I know it came out right before the championship. And let's see when that lawsuit was actually filed. Okay, here we go. This is the AI overview. So don't quote it directly because, hey, you saw what happened with Grok yesterday with AI. Grok was going crazy on X. But it says 2 NASCAR teams, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR in October of 2024. So it was October. Am I seeing October 2nd? Okay. I thought it was late October, but I'm seeing October 2nd. Yes. Okay. So October 2nd. Okay. So I was wrong on that. So you had a month or so after that before the championship. So this was a big story, obviously, for the last month, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, last year of the NASCAR season. So yeah, I mean, we're not approaching a year, but it's not far off. We're August, September, October. We're about 3 months away from this being a story for a year. So it was a big talking point, obviously, back in October for a week or so. It's been a big talking point in the offseason. There's been a lot of updates, but I feel like NASCAR and the teams, they've done a good job of not making this be a huge distraction for the on-race, on-track product. That's what I think, at least. I don't mind that we have some of these updates during the midweek. I feel like, yeah, Denny Hamlin, he's asked about it on the weekends if there's a development. He talks about it a little bit on his podcast, but I don't feel like this has become a huge distraction for the 2025 NASCAR season. What do you guys think? You agree? You disagree? What you think? Bart Omond. This is BS. A charter is equal to a franchise agreement, but it's not, though. It's actually not, and that's why they called it a charter and not a franchise. Could you imagine if the NFL could pull a franchise at their leisure? And that's where semantics, this is important. It was never a franchise, folks. It was a charter, and it was written and described that way on purpose. Alex Neller says, hey, Alex, we're about 13 minutes in. Hey, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please give us a thumbs up on this recording, this live stream. I'm not going to go too long. I always say that. Then I go way longer. But I really appreciate the fact we have 177 of you watching live, and thousands more will watch it after we're live. We'll put it on Kenny Wallace Media. So I appreciate you guys joining, and I like to read your comments because, hey, you took the time to put the comments in, and I like to acknowledge them and read them for you. Let's see. Rex Dowell says, they lose their charter, then they have sponsorship trouble. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace already said it. If he got to run open, they'd be leaving. Are you sure about that? I'd have to check on that. I mean, it's still one of the best teams in NASCAR, right? And look, first of all, them running open, if that's the case, if they have to run as open teams starting in a week at Dover, that would be, you would think, a 2025 problem, right? I mean, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, nobody's leaving in 2025. Now, if they were to lose the lawsuit, if something crazy happens, could those drivers walk away after 2025? Sure, I think that's definitely a possibility if they lose their charters. I don't think that's going to happen, and that's more of a story for the future. But none of these drivers are leaving 2025 when you're in the middle of a playoff chase. That's not going to happen. Let's see. We have Luap Nasla. I want to know why no one will talk about how NASCAR owns everything from the cars, tracks, tickets, TV income, just everything, and it's distracting. NASCAR looks like a bully. Yeah, I can see that also, that line of thinking. I think the teams eventually have to get a larger piece of the pie. That's where I'm on this. And I've said that from the get-go. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe NASCAR wins a trial, or who knows? We'll know in December. We'll see. Will NASCAR force these teams to run as open teams? Or could they have a little bit of an olive branch next week and say, you know what? We're going to allow you to run as chartered teams the rest of the year while we figure this out. Could you actually see some grace from NASCAR? What do you think? Probably not. You never know, which is why, look, there'll be some more really big news next week when 7 days from now, we could hear that these teams have to run as open teams, or maybe they have some type of deal. Maybe some type of deal for this year where, hey, we'll figure it out in the offseason. I don't know. I'm fascinated by that. Will NASCAR offer the teams any grace? I probably wouldn't if I was being sued, let's be honest. And I'm more on the side of the teams than NASCAR. But if I'm NASCAR and I'm being sued by these teams, why would I give them a break this year? Would you? Probably not. Let's see. Okay, so Rex Dow jumping back in. It didn't finish my recording. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace said that they lose the charter. They're leaving 2011. So what are they going to do for drivers for those two cars? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see. Yeah, Jerry Lewis says, Rex Dow, where are they going to go? There are no open seats. I mean, look at Kyle Busch. You don't think Kyle Busch probably wanted to go somewhere else? Let's be real. Then Richard Childress Racing, you don't think he picked up the phone to see if anybody else was wanting him, any seats available? Like, do you really think, by the way, this is more of a question for 2026, but do you really think that Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick can find better rides than 2311 Racing? 2311 Racing, they're essentially just a tick below the big three, right? Hendrick, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Penske. 2311 Racing is just a tick below. I mean, they're one of the better teams in NASCAR. I don't see those drivers leaving. Let's see. Johnny Stevens says, I am done with NASCAR. How about that? And Luap Nasla again. No, it's distracting in the sense of what used to be a great sport looks like some huge conglomerate evil empire. I don't know the bad guys in a Resident Evil movie, and that's what NASCAR looks like. How about that? I've never seen Resident Evil. I've heard about it. But you're saying NASCAR looks like a bully. They're the bad guys. Again, I understand them being a bully at times. They are being sued for monopolistic practices. I don't call them evil. I don't think they're a villain. But I think at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. I think they're going to probably have to cough up some more money to the teams when this is all said and done, whether it's a trial in December or a settlement. So there you go. DG1 says, goodbye, NASCAR. See ya. F you later. Now, are you mad about this lawsuit or is it something else? Here we go. We got Jimmy Brown. Jimmy Brown says, no grace from the France family, but no teams, no NASCAR. Money needs to be shared in a more equitable manner just for the health of the sport. That's where I'm at, Jimmy Brown. I thought that was very well said. Here we go. We got Charlie Ann, spelled differently than myself, which is C-H-A-R-L-I-E. This is C-H-A-R-L-E-Y. For the ones that said to do all this in the offseason, they really only have a month or two. That's not much time to get everything straightened out. Yeah, that's true. We said earlier, we looked it up. The lawsuit was filed October 2nd. So you have October, you have about what? A couple 10, 12 days in November before the season ends. Then you have essentially about 90 days exactly, right? You have whenever the season ended last year, early to mid-November, and then you have Daytona. Well, actually, you have the Clash first. So, I mean, really, it's 3 months. You have 3 months. Something this big is not going to be settled in 3 months. They'll end up having what? They'll end up having about 14 months to get all the discovery, to get all their I's dotted and T's crossed for a potential trial in December. Remember, and that's look, that timeline isn't crazy. Something this big, NASCAR versus the teams, monopolistic practices is what's being alleged. So it's not crazy at all with something this big for it not to go to trial for about 14 months or so. So here we go. DC 322 says 2311 and Front Row will still race as open teams. Yeah, in 2025. And that's the thing. I think they would also still race as open teams in 2026, even if they were to lose a trial. But again, that's a question for another day. That's a story for another day. But they have to go back to work in January, don't they? That's from Charlie Ann. I think they kind of work year round, to be honest with you. But I get what you're saying. I mean like the off season in terms of no actual races. That's what I meant. Here we go. Subaru Jiffy. Looking forward to NASCAR having to share financials if it goes to court. Me too, but also the teams would have to share financials. This is juicy. I'm looking forward to all this, right? Let's see. Megan Soriol says, how will this affect sponsorship and marketing, which NASCAR needs, along with the networks? I don't think this has any effect on that, to be honest with you. I mean, NASCAR just signed a, $7.7 billion TV package. They're doing fine, folks. They got streaming coming aboard. You saw Prime TV did great. You got Turner. They're like the NFL now. The NFL always had all the networks, right? You had the CBS package on Sundays, the Fox package. You got Monday Night Football with ABC, ESPN. You got Sunday Night Football with NBC. Now you got Prime with the NFL. So NASCAR's smart. They're making all these different networks and streaming services all buck up and compete for their different races. So NASCAR is doing just fine in that capacity. Although, hey, there are still issues. I think NASCAR needs to fix the car this offseason, fix the short track stuff. I don't like the fuel saving on the super speedways. And if we get back to the Mark Martin conversation, I would like to see them tweak the playoff format and not maybe have it come down to one race, maybe a final 3 races, figure something out just to make it not just all about one race. They've already switched up the final race where it's at. Remember, now we're going to have a rotating final race. It's not just going to be Phoenix every year. You're going to have Miami in the mix, and folks have talked about where else. Could it be Vegas? Could it be Charlotte? Could it be Darlington? What do you guys think? Phoenix in the mix, Miami, Homestead in the mix, and what other tracks you think could be thrown in there? Let's see. Here we go. NASCAR has already submitted their books. That's from John Haas. Okay. There was a comment I wanted to read back here. It was about, I said, would NASCAR offer any grace? Did I already read it? Yeah, here you go. Jimmy Brown. No grace from the France family, but no teams, no NASCAR. Oh, I already read this one. Sorry. Money needs to be shared in a more equitable manner just for the health of the sport. Well, Jimmy, that was so good that I read it twice. How about that? All right. I'm not going to go too much longer. I always say that, but you guys are still watching. 193 of you. I appreciate it. And we'll just kind of reset the title. Breaking news, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports denied hearing and could lose their charters next week. So not for Sonoma, but 7 days from now, these teams could be racing as open teams, which means they lose out on the financial incentive of being a chartered team. Plus, they would have to qualify in any races if there's more than 40 cars, which probably wouldn't happen very much at all. But look, just last week in Chicago, you had Catherine Legg qualified in over Corey Heim. So you could have some of these big teams. I mean, we're talking Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace. What if something were to happen, right? They have to go to a backup car. They crash in qualifying. I mean, could you have one of these big name drivers that don't make the show? I mean, that would be a massive story, obviously. Yeah, DG1, smash that like button, baby. Thank you for that. Luap Nasla, thank God they changed that up, rotating the final race. Finally, somebody besides Penske will win. We shall see. Penske certainly has the code cracked when it comes to Phoenix. That's for sure. Winning the last 3 championships, all 3 championships in the next gen era, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, back to Joey Logano. Let's see here. I want to see how many of y'all are watching or have been watching on YouTube, because I appreciate you guys on a Wednesday. Saw this breaking news, thought I'd jump on and chat with you. So far, 1,100 of you have been watching this live stream. And while I got you, by the way, we did a coffee with Kenny, put that out earlier, where Kenny was talking about some big news in F1. He was talking about Bowman Gray returning for the Clash. And also he had a nice tribute to his mom, who said gave him some needed tough love when he was a kid. And then also we have Herman Schrader coming up on YouTube. And it's already out there on Dirty Mo Media Podcast. So if you want to listen to Herman Schrader right now, you can go to Dirty Mo Media Podcast, and it's there, ready to rock and roll. I was going to put it on YouTube at 1, but because I went live, we'll probably let this live stream marinate on YouTube for a couple hours, and then we'll put Herman Schrader up here on YouTube so you can see the video in a couple hours here. How about that? Is that fair? Let's see. Patrick James Simpson, the Daytona 500 should never have stage racing or overtime. Gary Palmer says, watching on YouTube. Thank you. You're going to watch Herman Schrader on YouTube? Appreciate that. Charlie Ann says, rub some paint on that like button. How about that? And Justin Moore says, does this mean certain charters could go up for sale? I don't think anything's going to happen with these charters in terms of sales this year. I think they have to figure it out if it goes to a trial or a settlement. This is certainly bad news for 2311 and Front Row Motorsports for this year if they have to run as open teams. But I don't think any of that in terms of sales in the future will be impacted until we have a trial or a settlement, which would start in December if it's a trial. Let's see. Luap Nasla. You and Kenny could probably, with some suggestions from the knowledge, non-hating NASCAR fan, could do some serious digging and get a lot of clicks and bait likes. Doing what? I don't think we do the clickbait. I think we're pretty fair here, don't you think? What do you think? I think we're pretty fair with our titles. We don't do clickbait. We try to sell our titles a little bit. You have to market it. All right, it's promotion, but I don't think we're clickbait. Let's see. Megan Sarial. Thanks, Charlie. You make it make sense. Andrew Barella. Much love from Central Valley of California. Thank you, Andrew. Let's see. Patrick James Simpson. How much money has Jordan got to lose? When does he say enough? He's got a lot of money to lose. He doesn't want to lose it, but that man's got a lot of money. Let's just Google it real quick. Michael Jordan net worth, right? In the billions for sure. What are we thinking? Michael Jordan net worth. What's your guess? I'm going to say, could it be like 3 billion? Here we go. Ooh, look at that. This is according, I just Googled it. 3.5 billion by Forbes. That was 2025. So I was pretty close there. I said 3 billion. 3.5 billion according to Forbes. So he's got a lot of money to lose in theory, although he certainly doesn't want to lose any money. Does anybody want to lose money? I sure as hell don't. Let's see. 800 million. Nope. 3.5 billion, baby. Let's see. Please save NASCAR from the silliness of the gimmick races. Now, what are you talking about there? Are you talking about Chicago Street Course? I liked that race. Let's see. Luap Nasso says, it was said that NASCAR was going to delete them down to 32 if this went bad. That was before the 2 extra teams. So, yeah, you could have less charters next year if they lose a trial, for sure. Chump change. Yeah, I think, look, Michael Jordan doesn't start this fight if he doesn't think, A, he has a good chance of winning, and B, he has the financial wherewithal to stick it out. I mean, you think he thought this was going to end quick, right? We potentially have a trial, and these lawyers are not cheap, folks, as you know. NASCAR needs the Jordan connection. Do they need the Jordan connection? Is that what you're saying? Let me read real quick one more time the statement from the attorney for 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, just if some of you are joining us here at the end. I read this earlier. This is from Jeffrey Kessler. He's the attorney for the teams suing NASCAR. And here's his statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals decision to deny our request for a full rehearing. This decision has no bearing on the strength of our antitrust case, which we look forward to presenting at trial. We are committed to racing this season as we continue to fight for more competitive and fair terms for all teams to ensure the future of the sport and remain fully confident in our case." End quote. So there you go. We got more people joining, 217 now. You see the headline, breaking news, this is a couple hours ago. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports denied hearing. They could lose their charters next week. So 3-4 weeks ago when this first came out, and then the teams had their chance to appeal and ask for a rehearing. So today they lost that. Now there's a 7-day period where they could lose their charters. So it won't impact Sonoma coming up this weekend, but it could impact Dover. Let's check the schedule real quick. So basically, here we are. Just had Chicago. Shane Van Gisbergen won. As you know, you have Sonoma coming up. You got Dover after that. You got the Brickyard at Indy after that. That closes out July. But yes, starting at Dover, you could have 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports running as open teams. They lose out on the financial boom that you get from being a chartered team. And also, if there's more than 40 cars, they would have to qualify their way in. And if something bad happened in qualifying, they could actually not make the show on Sunday, which their sponsors would not be happy about, as you know. I also have a feeling all the sponsors kind of knew what was going on, right? There's a lot of talk about the team. So look, those sponsors, they're getting some extra publicity also, even if you could say it's negative publicity, but there's a lot of talk about these drivers and these cars, and you're seeing these cars more on the track or in pictures or in articles if they're talking about the lawsuit. So from a sponsorship standpoint, I think they're getting some good brand recognition, even if it's not always positive. But to me, this is just business. This is business, right? This happens in every major sport. Every major sport you have, we're going to call this a labor issue, whether it's a strike, whether it's a lockout, right? Every sport, I mean, I'm 43 years old. Every sport has gone through this. Baseball, the strike, right? You had another strike, or you had a lockout that pushed the season. Going back to when was that? That was like 2020, 2021, remember? Now they had to speed up the season later. They had these crazy doubleheaders and all that. That was just within the last 5 years. Hockey has had 2 strikes, 2 work stoppages in recent memory, right? The NBA too, they had that 50-game season. Was that about 20 years ago? Football, I know they had a lockout when I was covering the Rams. Now, they didn't miss any games. NFL didn't, but that was a lockout in the offseason. That was probably 10, 12 years ago, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Charlie, do you have a win prediction for Sonoma? Should I go SVG? Is that too easy? What about Michael McDowell? How about Michael McDowell running so well? Remember, he led. What did he lead? 30 laps? I think he actually led more laps than Shane Van Gisbergen at the Chicago race. Here, let's find it real quick. I believe he led 31 laps. I looked that up the other day. So Shane Van Gisbergen led 26 laps, and Michael McDowell led 31 laps of that race before things went sour for him. Won that first stage, finished 32nd, but had good speed. He was given SVG everything he had. So, I mean, it'd be a good story if Shane Van Gisbergen won. I'm going to go with Michael McDowell. I'd like to see Michael McDowell win that race. What do you guys think? I'm trying to think of other drivers that haven't won this year that I'd like to see get a road course victory. What about AJ Allmendinger? That'd be a good story. He's 15th in points right now, so he's running well. Still needs a win. McDowell obviously needs a win. Who are other good road course racers? Shane Van Gisbergen already has 2 wins. I mean, is it gonna be a road course specialist? Or is one of the big guys? I mean, Chase Elliott's a good road course driver, obviously. What'd you have? You had the other day, Denny Hamlin finished 4th on the street course. I mean, look, Ty Gibbs finished 2nd in that race. Tyler Reddick is obviously a really good road course racer. Kyle Busch finished 5th. I'd like to see Kyle Busch. I still want to see Kyle Busch win a race. I've given you 10 answers right now. Could Ty Gibbs' first ever win be at Sonoma in the Cup Series? Kyle Busch hasn't won in forever. I'd like to see Kyle Busch get a win. I gave you 5 answers there, which didn't really answer your question, but there you go. I would like to see Bubba Wallace get a road course victory. That'd be pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. DG1, it's time for a new sanctioning body and new tracks to race at. But they're going to new tracks, right? I mean, Mexico City, Chicago street course. I said this on Herman Schrader. You can listen to it right now on Dirty Mo Media. It's coming out on YouTube later. I said, I think NASCAR is doing a good job of melding the old with the new, the old fan with the new fan. Some new stuff, Mexico City and Chicago street course and maybe a San Diego street course, right? But the old fans, they got North Wilkesboro, they got Rockingham, they got Bowman Gray. I feel like they're trying their best to serve all the different fans. And I'm somebody who's critical of NASCAR, I feel like, when it's fair. And I think NASCAR is doing a hell of a job in that capacity. I think they got to clean up the playoffs a little bit. And I think all offseason, all they have to do, they just have to fix the car on the short tracks. Figure it out. Do tons of testing. Let the teams tinker. Let the teams figure it out. Clean up the short track racing and no more fuel saving. Figure it out at super speedways. Other than that, and I know that's a lot, but like intermediate racing, pretty dang good, don't you think? Road course racing, pretty dang good, don't you think? Chicago, I thought, was really good. COTA earlier this year was a great race. Christopher Bell, remember, he was held off Kyle Busch at the end there. That was great racing. So, look, it is a lot, but if you figured out intermediates, you figured out road course racing, fix the short tracks, and Atlanta is great too, by the way. Atlanta is great also. But super speedway racing, fans don't want to see fuel saving. Neither do I. Fix the short track package. And NASCAR, I think a lot of people will stop complaining. Actually, people are always going to complain, but a lot of people will stop. People love to complain. Let's be real. Let's be real. Okay, here we go. With any luck, the entire field will beat Denny Hamlin. Not a Hamlin fan, huh? Huh? I think an underrated problem is the bump out of 4 at TMS. Okay, we're getting real particular here. Let's see. All right, I'll tell you what. I wasn't going to go long. I did go long. Thank you guys. Seriously, thank you all for jumping in the comments. Thank you for watching. 216 of you watching live. Let's check the YouTube numbers. 1,646 people have watched this live stream. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe. It's free. If you haven't, please hit that like button. It'll help with the YouTube algorithm. And I appreciate you guys very much. One more time. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports denied hearing, could lose their charters next week. They could run as open teams for the Dover race. They lose out on a bunch of money. They would have to qualify their way in if they lose that charter status next week. There you go. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Love you all. Charlie Marlow signing off. End stream. End stream.